Hey guys, it's Nsala here and welcome back to my channel for a brand new video. I hope you're all doing okay and having a good one. And today we'll be talking about an unsolved mystery, which is the infamous serial killer, the B1 Butcher. And this person was active in Namibia during a particular period of time. So when I was researching this case, I actually got a little bit carried away because I could not believe some of the things I was seeing. I kept looking for more and more information, and for lack of a better word, it was honestly fascinating just to learn all the little details that I learned. So let's get into the case. And before I actually tell you about the case, I want to explain to you about the B1 road. It is sort of considered like the main road in Namibia. It runs through the country, the entire length of the country, from the south to the north. So from the south, the border between Namibia and South Africa, all the way to the top of the country, at the border between Namibia and Angola. So it is like a really long road. On the chilly morning of August the 20th in 2005, the body of a young 22-year-old Melanie Janse was found. Her body was found near the B1 bypass near Fanek Power Station in Windhoek, Namibia. Her body was found naked, mutilated, and she had been strangled to death. Now, one thing about Melanie is that she was a prostitute, so she did prostitution for a living. And I'm just telling you this now so you can remember it for later on. It is a really important fact. Now, almost a month later, on the 25th of September in 2005, another body was found. This time, it belonged to 21-year-old Juanita Mabula. Her body was found near the B1 bypass, close to a cutoff to the Windhoek Turf Club. Her head had been dissected from the base of her neck. However, her body was still intact and there was no wounds on her body. But they searched everywhere and her head was nowhere to be found. And without her head, it was really hard for investigators to come up with the cause of her death, or if the decapitation had taken place while she was still alive. And now the fact that she had no wounds on her body, and usually when you're attacked, you fight, you try to, fight off the attacker. She had no defensive wounds, suggesting that probably she had been caught off guard. She was not expecting an attack and she had no idea she was about to be attacked, and when she was attacked, it ultimately caused her to probably be knocked out or she died immediately. So she had no time to defend herself, and that's just why she had no wounds on her body. Now, Juanita was last seen between 3 to 4 a.m. She was last seen near Engine Fuel Station, which is on the corner of Independence Avenue near Ulan Street. She was then found at 8 a.m. that same morning. So between 3 to 4 a.m. and then she was found at 8 a.m. That was just a short window of about 4 to 5 hours, which the killer had to find his victim, kidnap his victim, kill his victim, decapitate his victim, and then go dump off her body. Which just shows how meticulous this person was, that they really didn't need that much time to carry out this heinous crime. They just needed a short amount of time and they knew exactly what they were doing, did it, and then, got on with it. Now, a week after the discovery of Juanita's body, the police had made no arrests and didn't even have a single suspect. And in a statement, Warrant Officer Christopher Munyinka said that it was a very complicated investigation. When I saw he used very 3 times, I was like, whoa, my goodness, it must have been just really hard for him to use very 3 times. And that's when, to sort of jot people's memory and to encourage people to come forward if they knew anything, the Namibian police announced a 20,000 Namibian dollar reward. This would go to anyone that would give the police information that would lead to the arrest and prosecution of the killer, of both Juanita's killer and Melanie's killer. And mind you, at this time, both murders had not been linked. They were treated as separate individual cases. When it was suggested that there might be a serial killer out there, the Namibian police responded that they couldn't really say because they didn't even have a suspect, so it was impossible for them to come up with that explanation. Now, almost exactly a month later, on the 24th of October, Juanita's head was found near the B1 bypass, and after the discovery of her head, they were able to deduce the cause of her death, and that was blunt force trauma to the head. One thing about Anita, she, like Melanie, was also a prostitute, so you need to remember this for later on in the case. Now, after Juanita, there was an additional victim. This was 18-year-old Viola Swakboy. She was last seen a few days before Christmas, and she just went missing. She vanished and no one knew where she went. That's when, on the 28th of December, Viola's body was found buried in a shallow grave. Now, this was believed to be the work of the B1 butcher, however, it was never officially confirmed. And I can understand why they hesitated in, blaming this on the B1 butcher, because the methods of killing and disposing of the body were completely different. From what we believed of the B1 butcher, the two murders of Melanie and Juanita, he seemed to want fame, hidden fame. So people knew that, the person was out there. I don't know why I said he, because we don't know what gender the B1 butcher is, or if it's a group or anything like that. So let's just say this person wanted to be known, wanted fame, and wanted the public to know that they were there and were doing this because they were dumping the bodies for people to easily find them. While for Viola's killer, this person clearly didn't want to be known. By burying her body, that was burying evidence, so they wanted all this to be hidden. And this is the last known case in 2005. So then after 2005, we jump later ahead to a year and a half. And that is when a 36-year-old woman named Sana Helena Garwes would go missing. She was last seen on the 13th of June in 2007 near a restaurant on Independence Avenue in Windhoek in the city center. 3.5 days later, that was on the afternoon of 17th of June, a female torso was found and it was dissected in two. This torso was found in a garbage bag which was dumped at a lay-by near the B1 road. This was approximately 42 kilometers north of Windhoek. 3 days after the discovery of the torso, they found two human thighs. These thighs were dumped in a rubbish bin, and this rubbish bin was found close to another lay-by which was in the Rehoboth district, so about 42 kilometers north of Rehoboth. And upon the discovery of the two legs, this helped investigators because of an old bullet wound found on the victim's leg. They were positively able to identify them as those of Sana Helena Garwes. Now, 4 weeks later, they found a head, two lower legs, and 2 feet. And this were dumped near the B6 Trans-Kalahari Road, which is about 35 kilometers east of Windhoek. And another thing about it is the 2 feet, the middle toes of both feet were cut off. I don't know why the killer went that far as doing that, like as if everything else was not bad enough. They just went the extra mile. And these belonged to Sana as well. So it's just to show how crazy this person was. And then you can already tell that the B1 butcher took sort of a cool down or a gap period from the last known murders in 2005 to a year and a half later, that was Sana. And usually, according to the pathologies of serial killers, the cool down period depends, from serial killer to serial killer, but they usually do this when a major event has happened in their life, such as the loss of a loved one. probably finding love or getting married, having a child, or them moving somewhere else, or probably getting a new job, something that takes away their free time, so they don't really have time to plan all these murders or to plan how to bury them or hide them or dispose of the bodies. So I just wonder what happened in the B1 butcher's life that made them take such a gap. And the gap usually varies because usually between the first killing and the second killing of a serial killer, the time period or the window, the gap becomes longer and longer. So the first and the second killing probably was 5 years, and then from the second to the third killing it will probably be like 3 years, and then like the window reduces. So I hope you get what I'm trying to say. And that is it with Sana's murder. And like the other 3 ladies, Sana as well was a prostitute. After the grisly discovery of Sana Helena Garwes, the B1 butcher was officially declared a serial killer, and all the different murders were officially linked together and treated as one major case. And then after the discovery of Sana in the same month of June, more body parts were found and they were scattered across the B1 road. So the killer wasn't making it easy for the police because they would dump probably an arm here, and then a few kilometers ahead the head, and a few kilometers ahead probably the legs. And this victim unfortunately was never identified until today. And then in the next month of July, again more body parts were found, and this victim also was never identified. And that's when in the next month of August, 2 sets of remains were found. That was an arm and a decapitated head. And these were found further up north, so from Windhoek to Okanja, that road. And these were believed to be the body parts of the victim, the previous victim that was found in July. So this victim is believed to be the last victim of the B1 butcher, or as far as police and everybody else knows or believes. So now, who is the B1 butcher? The person unfortunately has never been caught, and this was a really difficult and very difficult case for the Namibian police to figure out or to come up with an answer for the public, because everybody was now panicking. And they actually had to enlist the help of the South African police, because at that time they had just apprehended the ABC killer, Moses Sithole, who was very notorious for killing and raping a lot of people. And because now they were more experienced and they had dealt with a serial killer before, they thought they could help them deal with this because they were inexperienced and never had been through this process before. And now, even though the cases have remained unsolved until today, there has been 3 theories that have been suggested as to who the B1 butcher might be. And I'm going to start now with theory number 1. In August of 2007, a German citizen named Heinz Knierim was arrested. He was suspected of allegedly raping a 29-year-old Namibian woman the previous month. And he was accused of allegedly subsequently trying to strangle the lady to death. However, he denied all allegations. And while awaiting trial, he was held in custody for 2 years without bail. However, on February of 2010, he was then released due to lack of evidence and was acquitted of all charges. But he then later on decided to sue the Namibian government, to sue for damages for the ordeal that he suffered or everything he had gone through. He felt he needed to be compensated because according to him he was wrongly accused. But I don't know then what happened with the case of the 29-year-old woman who was accused of raping, if those 2 years were also included as his sentence for that, or he was just acquitted of all charges including those of that lady, if he was ever punished or not, or if he was even guilty in the first place. And that is the theory number 1 of this man. And I believe they thought that he could have been the butcher because his MO, or the way he carried out this attack, was very similar as to what they believed the B1 butcher did and how he found his victims. So now, it, like I said, was very well known that the women, at least the ones that were identified, were prostitutes. Especially that two of the women knew each other, and that was Melanie and Sana. And it was believed that the two women worked the same streets and were very familiar with each other. So it was believed that whoever the B1 butcher might be is somebody who was a local, someone very familiar with the girls, and someone who knew their place of work or just how they operated and when to find them alone and probably attack them. So now for theory number 2. In 2008, a man named Hans Husselman took his own life after being implicated in the murders of the girls. Hans had served a life sentence for 2 different murders and was then released in 2004, just before the murders began. And there was actually quite damning evidence against him. For instance, after forensic investigation of his flat, Sana Helena Garwes's DNA was found in his flat, and a letter that was sent to the police with some information about Juanita Mabula, who was the second victim of the B1 butcher. On that letter, Hans' DNA was found. So this was someone completely, like, not even in the image, someone that was not linked to him, but for some reason on that letter his DNA was found. And now this was said to be inconclusive evidence, and why they called this inconclusive was because the police actually believed that the B1 butcher was not this serial killer, that the B1 butcher was actually one person who had committed a crime, and then the other murders were copycats. So some people emulating exactly what the B1 butcher had done, just a bunch of different copycats that were doing the same exact thing, so it looked like one person had a cycle or a pattern of doing things, but in actual fact it was different people. And I don't know why they came to that conclusion. But another thing is that probably Sana had just been in his flat, you know, for business purposes, because she was a prostitute, so that would have been a very plausible explanation as to why her DNA was found there. And for the letter, the problem is back then DNA testing wasn't as advanced as it is right now, and especially in Namibia, you can just imagine how bad DNA testing must have been at that time. And the DNA wasn't exactly his genetic makeup. It was just a genetic profile of that person or the killer or whoever had sent the anonymous letter to the police. So it didn't directly point to him that he was the person, because a lot of people can have that same genetic profile, but it just put him within that, you know, minority, in that small group of people. So it was really going to be unfair to blame him for that. But then him committing suicide just made it all that more suspicious, like he was running away from taking responsibility for his actions. And so theory number 3, which is named the Doctor, is the one I actually believe is quite plausible and might actually be what happened, just according to my own opinion. So the theory was dismissed earlier on by the Namibian police, and even though they dismissed it and didn't want to look further in it, it actually remains quite suspicious just how it turned out to be. Earlier on, it was said that the dismemberment of the bodies was actually quite precise. It was considered to be of professional nature, meaning that whoever was doing this was probably like a doctor, an actual butcher, or a vet, someone who deals in such things, like a surgeon, someone who knows exactly how to dismember a body and the right way, because it's just not done anyhow. You have to know the bones and all this type of things. So they believe it was someone within that field that would know such information. And in 2007, the police arrested a drunken driver who was a doctor. And while he was held in police custody for an overnight, because I've never been arrested before, but I heard that when you are caught, you know, intoxicated, they will hold you for the night and you'll probably be released. I don't know if you pay, but yeah, you'll be released the next day. And while he was in holding and intoxicated, he actually confessed to being the B1 butcher and being responsible for the murders of the ladies. However, the police thought that he was just intoxicated and it was just the alcohol talking, so they never took him seriously, and the next day they just let him go. But I find it a bit ridiculous, because surely they should have held him and then the next morning when he sobered up, take him in for questioning, just to repeat what you said the night before. And they'll probably have to have those specialists who study body movement and speech and all these different things, like I see in the American investigations, where they're able to tell according to your reaction to questions if you're lying or telling the truth. But it's Namibia, probably don't have such specialists, right? And so they let this person go without questioning. And I've never been drunk before and then go out and start confessing to murdering people. I don't know if that's what people do, if you just get intoxicated and start confessing to killing a bunch of people. Like, who does that? That's why I felt they should have probed further into this confession and just see if there was anything there, but they didn't, and that's it. So I want to ask you guys, which theory do you think is the most plausible, the one that you actually think might be what actually happened? Do you think it was theory number 1 of Kniram, who was held for 2 years and subsequently released? Do you think it's theory number 2 of Husselman, who took his own life later on? Or do you think it's theory number 3 of the doctor? I find the doctor very suspicious, but yeah, that is it for this case. Quite unfortunately that these ladies were killed and their lives were ended so early. And you have to realize that these women, because they were prostitutes, it made it very easy for them to be targeted, because prostitutes are transient, so they're never permanently in one place. So I don't know if you understand me when I say this, but they're not missed. If they go away for 2 days, nobody quite thinks that they're missing. They probably just think they're with a client, or they probably went to another post to look for better opportunities there instead of this place. There are no customers passing by here. So that's what I believe why when they went missing, nobody was actually looking for them, because they didn't know that they were missing until the bodies were found. And that just makes it all the more sad, So I do believe sex workers need to be protected. They need to be safe, because you cannot decide what someone should do for a living, but at least you can make it safer so that when they do practice what they do, people don't take advantage of them, because they know that they would never run to the police for help, because they would just be arrested themselves. So that is it for this case, and yeah, quite sad. And another thing I forgot to mention, the bodies were actually quite well preserved. So they were all, seemed or appeared as if they were frozen or kept in a cold storage place. Quite well preserved, because remember, he would dump bodies after months, and we don't know. And I apologize for saying he. I do not know why I kept saying he, because we do not know who this person was. Could have been a woman, a man, a group. We never got to find out who the B1 butcher is. But I've rambled on enough now, so thank you very much for your time, and until the next video, take care and goodbye.